Hello, everybody. I'm back. Hopefully, you can hear me. Thumbs up from David Schuster to another role he performed. Genius reporter, amazing friend. Thumbs up when you can hear me. Hey, there's somebody reporting who's not here. The other. Back, everybody. Let some funky music play for a few more seconds. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I am your host, Cliff Schechter. I am here with the great, the only, really the superior David Schuster.
Hey, Cliff, I got a report. I don't know if you have seen this clip. Donald Trump, he clearly has dementia. It's the most obvious now I have ever seen. We're going to try to pull up this clip from Mediaite, where the headline is quiet Trump lashes out at NBC News jerk and stunning Oval Office exchange. This is one of the wackiest things you'll ever see from Donald Trump. He's hosting the South African, I guess, prime minister or president, and Peter Alexander asks about Trump giving, helping white South African people come to the United States. And then Trump gets annoyed about that. And then Peter asked about the Pentagon accepting the Qatari jet, and Trump just goes crazy. He goes nuts.
I think what that means is in about 2 years, so that we can understand what Trump is doing right now, we'll get a book by Jake Tapper on Joe Biden's cancer. And that will lead us to understand exactly. I'm just making it clear to everybody from now on that I'm beating the shit out of Jake Tapper for the rest of my life. So as long as I do live streams and write things, he's going to be a punchline in everything I do.
And by the way, Cliff, did you see the Beau Biden stuff about Jake Tapper? Hunter Biden. That apparently when Beau was laying in Walter Reed Hospital dying of cancer, Jake Tapper kept calling Hunter to try to get some sort of scoop. And Hunter wasn't picking up the phone. So then Jake used an unlisted number to try to get through.
Is this the same one that dated Monica Lewinsky after the scandal so he'd get more information on what happened in the Clinton White House? He's the sleaziest, slimiest, lowest, most pathetic. God, I hope that book crashes. Nobody buy it. Any bookstore you go to, if you see it, don't commit any illegal acts. But what I used to enjoy doing is just pick up another book and put it in front of it. So any other book, really, just do that. I hope this thing crashes and burns, and I hope it drags him down with it, because I'm going to make him he's going to be the face, the embodiment of when I refer to corporate media, it's sliminess, it's need, it's need to be the center of attention, it's need to make every last cent of money, no matter how much they destroy everything else. Jake embodies all of that. And as I've said in that Substack, which I hope many of you read, I knew him a bit, in our 20s. So I'm speaking from personal experience of what I knew of him then, and I'm speaking from every single damn thing I have heard about him since, from everybody who knows him.
And I have some related dating advice to my nephew and to everybody else who's out there single. I hope you find somebody who loves you as much as Jake Tapper loves fame.
Yes. As much as Jake Tapper loves seeing his face on a camera or hearing his name mentioned. The thing about that book is he signed on to Alex Thompson's book, which was, everybody's like, hey, good job writing a book there about the guy that didn't win. But he signed on to Alex Thompson's crappy book that Thompson kept tweeting out garbage about, really towards the end of the election. When it could do real damage too. And I kept hitting back at him on Twitter. Jake joined later afterwards, and he has another book coming out too. Who didn't love him? Who hurt him? You need your face on every camera. You need 2 books out at the same time. Get a life. We're not impressed. I'm really not impressed by you. I don't really know what else to say. I don't know if some of these media stars in DC think that somehow they're movie stars or something, but you're not Cary Grant, dude. You're just not. So in any case, whatever. There's so much out there about him. I didn't heard even the story you told me, but I can find more stories. I know more, like the Lewinsky one, and like the other ones that I told people about how badly he wanted to be on TV and didn't care about it, back in his 20s. Like there's just so much out there on him. He's such a scumbag.
It's also poisoning the reputation of some of his friends. I saw Alyssa Farah Griffin, who was on The View. I think she worked for Trump at one point, and she was out there defending Jake, saying, "Oh, Jake's a friend of mine, and he's such a great journalist." I mean, and look, I mean, he holds people accountable. He moderated the debate, and I wanted to jump out of my skin and throw a brick at the rocket my screen here, because he didn't moderate the debate. He simply teed up questions. He didn't bother to fact check either Biden or Donald Trump. So
he was a house plant
up as some sort of example of, oh, Jake's such a great, courageous journalist because he moderated a debate. That's total bullshit.
Moderating has a word that actually has a meaning attached to it. He was a house plant at that debate.
Yep.
He did nothing. Yeah. And I was on Bob Seska's podcast with him, which is always fun to go back on. And in that, I don't care if I repeat myself. I gave my whole theory of why I despise the Jake Tappers of the world. Because I was talking about a gym I belong to here, where the trainer, where we do these classes, these sort of circuit workouts, and there's 8-10 people per class, whatever. A lot of them are people apolitical, don't really, they may lean a little bit to the right on some things, but a few to the left, don't really know. And the issue is, and some of this is, of course, lack of building of lefty media infrastructure. Something else I think we're going to address this live stream, because David and I, we have some plans, but also, and how we've allowed right-wing disinformation to flow freely under an extreme interpretation of the First Amendment that the United Kingdom doesn't allow, and Canada doesn't allow, and France, whatever. There's a lot of things here, but when Jake Tapper writes a book like that, and then it's what becomes one big infomercial from CNN, and it gets covered by all the usual sort of centristy, Politico, Axios, Joe Scarborough, all the ones who want to be the radical centrists, because I'm too cool, man. When that happens, what happens is these people I'm in this gym, they end up hearing these things, like they did about Hunter Biden. Didn't really know what to think, but they knew he was corrupt because they kept hearing it. They hear these things about places like Benghazi, who I'm sure most people can't find on a map, but they knew it was bad and it was Hillary Clinton's fault. And this is where the right wing is successful, because people like Jake Tapper launder their garbage out to a large mainstream media. And David, as somebody who comes from Bloomington, granted it may have been a different situation back then because there were more resources for local papers, but I'm here to tell you that if you're in a place like I am in Cincinnati, they take their cues from CNN, New York Times, stuff like that. They don't have the reporting ability anymore. So if the New York Times says it's true, CNN says it's true. And that's why I hate them so much, because the disproportionate influence their lies have.
I will say, though, that, like Jon Stewart, he had an epic episode the other night where he lampooned Jake and CNN for, as Stewart pointed out, wasn't it, why didn't you report the news when it was news, when he was in office, and sort of went after both Jake for sort of the, Jake sort of taking advantage of the situation, but also CNN constantly promoting this. And so I do think that in certain, across much of the country, sure, people are going to take, what Jake Tapper and CNN says is gospel. But I do think that the more enlightened, educated viewers and consumers that are out there, to them, Jake Tapper is the source of scorn and ridicule, that he is a laughing stock because he has been the butt of jokes now from Jon Stewart and from people who are really sort of thinking this through. They get it.
And I think that's only going to go further. Look, I don't have close to the reach and ability to affect culture as someone like Jon Stewart. But if every time I do anything anywhere, and we've got a pretty sizable audience in some spots like Substack, if every time I make this person into the joke that he is, use him as the butt of jokes, even in columns that aren't about him. I did that today when we start talking about Kristi Noem, who, yes, I heard from a friend in DC some interesting stuff, which I put in the title about, which is the Trump people being very upset and even the word fired being used. I don't believe they'll really do it, but they're not happy about the habeas corpus, where she's like, huh? Corpus Christi? What?
Yeah, that's in the video of on the Substack today. And for people who don't know, she was testifying at a Senate hearing, and she was asked point blank by Maggie Hassan, what is habeas corpus? And she said, oh, it's the right of the president to deny blah, blah. No, that's not what it is. Habeas corpus is enshrined in Article 1 of the Constitution. It's a requirement that anybody who's in America who is detained, who is arrested, the government has to explain why, and they have to do so in a court.
Yep.
And the only time that can be suspended is if Congress agrees. Well, the Trump administration, Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, they're thinking about suspending habeas corpus without Congress, which, of course, the courts.
Democracy's over. I mean, literally that moment, democracy is fully over.
And unfortunately, because Trump has already proven that he's willing to ignore the courts, if the courts reject him this time and say, no, you can't suspend habeas corpus, but he does it anyway. I mean, so I feel like we're in uncharted waters. And the fact that Kristi Noem wouldn't know what habeas corpus is when it's her agency, her part of the government that is responsible for deporting undocumented migrants, that is sick.
She's like, what do you mean I don't know what it is? I've been to Corpus Christi. I mean, she just, so, and so, but I wanted to remind people, because I wanted to share this because I got this from somebody who tends to know their stuff in DC, but he cautioned me. I already gave away. It's a he. But cautioned me, and it reminds me of what happened with Hegseth. Remember, they're having serious discussions about canning him, and that was and Trump was saying it too, and it didn't end up happening. So I can't promise anybody, but I can tell you that at least if the person I talked to is correct, they're having those conversations, because it was sort of a couple things in a week. One, she went in, got dressed down basically by Dan Goldman and Eric Swalwell, two of the best on Kilmar Brego Garcia and on due process. And all she could keep doing is repeating the same robotic talking points to the point of where, I mean, if you're the viewer, people could see that she could not answer their questions. At one point, Goldman was so annoyed by her sort of filibustering, he told her to be quiet. And Swalwell too. We had two of the best there, kind of not letting her get away with that. And then on top of that, in habeas corpus, there was the reality show that leaked that she wants to do, because yes, we've reached the Running Man portion or Hunger Games portion of our democracy, where being able to stay in this country legally is now a game show. Instead of compassion for people that are here. It said something about that, I don't know, Samaritan or something in the New Testament, but that much like the Constitution and other things, that's something that Kristi Noem has never read. And so a game show, literally pitting people's humiliations up against each other and their lives, destroy, who gets kicked out of the country. And she pitched this. Now they're denying it, but numerous sources said that she did. So when all of that breaks in a week, when you can't defend yourself or your office and you can't defend Trump, and let's be honest, he embarrasses himself like he did today every day, but he holds other people to different standards than he holds himself to. When they embarrass him, the almighty Lord, he can't. So that's what happened with Hegseth, and Hegseth was like that close to being canned. Well,
that's interesting if they're considering dumping Kristi Noem. I meant to ask you, Cliff, because it feels like the big news on Capitol Hill now is that last night the House advanced this effort, this tax and spending bill, whatever you want to call it. Trump calls it his big beautiful bill, and the House Rules Committee met at 1 a.m. to advance it. Talk about transparency. But hours before they met, the Congressional Budget Office came out and said, okay, this is going to cut Medicare. This is going to force cuts to Medicare by $500 billion over 10 years. And so now you have the situation where, okay, they're advancing a bill that's going to cut Medicare, and you have Donald Trump on the record saying repeatedly, oh no, they're only going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And I feel like we're in this sort of weird situation now where Republicans in the Senate, who could put a stop to this, either they really sort of deal in reality and say, no, this doesn't just cut waste, fraud, and abuse, this guts part of the program, or do they buy Donald Trump's lies when Donald Trump says, oh no, it's just waste, fraud, and abuse?
Well, and they have to sell that. Now, as I've said, they have all the advantages in selling their crap. The Jake Tappers of the world just repeat what they say without questioning it. And we don't have the kind of media infrastructure they have, and their right-wing propaganda that they call media will repeat it again and again and again. So they'll turn it so that the whole program is waste, fraud, and abuse as far as they're concerned. But again, it's really hard, as they've learned, to sell somebody on something that's actually happening to them, that they're wrong. When somebody is losing their own healthcare because of what these bastards are doing, it's pretty hard to say, no, you didn't really. We just got rid of waste and fraud and abuse. You really have healthcare. You know, like I don't know if they're planning on using the Jedi mind trick or what the plan is, but I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, and I almost see there's a similarity there with, you can't fool people who are losing insurance. You can't fool investors who are losing their shirts on Wall Street because of the tariffs. And, they're the ones who essentially put a stop to Donald Trump's fiction about the tariffs and other countries paying the tariffs. And so when Wall Street freaked out and the markets dropped and investors lost confidence in Trump, the American people responded. And now Trump's, at 39% in terms of his handling of the economy. I think it's going to be, double digits underwater again when it comes to handling issues like healthcare or, issues that, pocketbook issues that face people when they see that they are losing. And so it's, in a way, reality has a way of catching up with Donald Trump. It takes time, and it doesn't happen as quickly as we would like, but it eventually does catch up with him.
Well, I'd even go so far as to say, when you look at how asymmetrical the distribution of information is, the right-wing propaganda, corporate media, garbage, repeating a lot of that stuff and doing whatever they can to make money, like the stupid book and what we, and are not be able to compete on that front. It actually is, it tells you something rather amazing that we've been able to win as many elections as we've won. And that as often as we do, we're able to stop them from this kind of stuff. But I still have to ask, my God, like, even if this thing doesn't pass, and they think it's not going to pass in the Senate, so that's why they voted for it. So they wouldn't, a few of these House members, like these half dozen to a dozen House members that call themselves either principled conservatives or moderates or whatever they call themselves, every single one of them should be fucking destroyed with this in the midterm election. Again, if habeas corpus is still around, if we can vote, anything would tell you right now. We saw it again just with another election in a district in New York, a state Senate race that happened yesterday, where there was a renegade Democrat, one of those ones that always caucused with the Republicans who had kept winning there, while Donald Trump won that district by a decent amount, and a real Democrat just won. And it was the switch of whatever the net switch of voting, of percentage was like 30 or something percent. Again, we're in territory where, states like Kansas and places like that should be in play. So, they should honestly lose, because again, he's not at this point in his first term when he did stuff, it was mostly hurting people that already hated them and motivating more of them to come out and vote. And yeah, there was some persuasion of some maybe people that voted for him the first time were like, oh God, he's terrible, and voting against him the second time. But now he's all this stuff, from Doge to tariffs to, to the deportations, which have led farms and ranches to go bankrupt and other things. He's directly targeted his own voters. And this bill, if it passes, will do that again. They disproportionately are on Medicaid. They're going to be destroyed by this. Yeah, if his own people turn against him, you could see now we're talking more of an FDR 1934 type midterm election. They could get, they could lose 80 to 100 seats. And I'm not kidding, if we're in that kind of territory.
And to your point, our friend Alex Lawson from Social Security Works, the brilliant thing he did last night, he caught up with Marionette Miller Meeks, who was a Republican congresswoman from Iowa. She won her seat by, I think, less than 1,000 votes.
The first time she won by 6 votes.
Yeah, and so a very tight swing district. And she had promised that she would not vote to cut Medicare and Medicaid. But obviously, that's what this bill is that she is supporting. So there's Alex Lawson sticking a microphone in her face with the cameras rolling as she's walking down the hallway. And all she can do is look down and not answer him. And again, it's, so kudos to Alex Lawson, because it's individuals like that who, when people are able to see, oh, she is actually going to be held accountable, not just by the Alex Lawsons of the world, but by her own voters, who now know perfectly clearly that she is voting to cut their Medicare and Medicaid after promising that she would not. And in a swing district, I think that makes a huge
Oh,
difference, and that should be a Democratic pickup in 2026.
it should. And I think it's going to go beyond just those swing districts. I think that, you're getting towards, plus 10 Republican. Look, they already were too scared. They had to pull back on having Elise Stefanik go to the UN. And that's a plus 9 or something district in New York. And they were scared they would lose it. We saw the overperformance in those Florida districts, the Wisconsin Supreme Court win. Like, we've been seeing these things, right? And that was an 11 or 12 point turnaround, something like that Wisconsin Supreme Court win. They're especially a midterm or whatever, Trump not on the ticket to turn out his sort of, base of incel men that only turn out for him, and just all the bad vibes and bad feelings and hatred that they've brought up among their own folks and the rest of us with what they've done. I mean, again, he hadn't lost this kind of ground. In that midterm in 2018 where we crushed him. The last time I saw a poll that had, and again, take each poll with a grain of salt, but there are other ones that were saying similar things. He had lost white voters without a college degree had turned against him by 10% more, right? So a negative 10 since the election. So, I think it's real, and I don't know that there's anything they can do to win those folks back.
I got a question for you. Another question, Cliff, related to your political experience and strategist experience. So, the other news today is that Donald Trump and the Pentagon, they have agreed to accept this $400 million Qatari jet. The emoluments clause, the Constitution is pretty clear that this sort of gift can only be accepted if Congress approves it. I'm not sure Congress is going to take a vote. I'm sort of of two minds of this. The first is, well, this is about as clear a case of corruption as one gets. But Donald Trump and the media, the right-wing media, use their megaphone to say, oh, no, we should be grateful that Qatar is giving us a $400 million airplane, that somehow we don't have to spend this money. So how does it cut politically? If you're cutting ads, if you're putting together campaigns for 2026, is this something you glom onto, that you focus on, or do you just let it go?
I absolutely grab it because I think it speaks to two things. It speaks to foreign ownership of Donald Trump, whether it be Vladimir Putin or MBS or Qatar, numerous other places. And secondly, of course, just the massive corruption, and there'll be plenty of cases of that, but it has to be, that we message properly, that our people get out there, that we spend the resources to go and talk to people in places that we've ignored, that we do all these things to make sure, because it will be a massive liability. It's just if some people don't know as much about it, but you need to put it in a narrative frame, and it ain't a difficult one to do. I've been saying forever, I don't understand how they can't repeat every single time, and just say the simple words, convicted criminal Donald Trump. And that is what he should be referred to as. And Sheldon Whitehouse and Jasmine Crockett are the only two that I've seen doing this regularly. He is a criminal. He was convicted as a criminal. People should be reminded of that all the time, and it drives you crazy, because I would go with the frame, of just referring to him as a criminal constantly, and I would label the entire Republican Party cruel, corrupt, and incompetent. Your three sort of almost C's. It sounds like incompetence starts with the C almost. You're close enough. And just build a narrative frame, and underneath that, why is he cruel? What has he done? Why is he corrupt? What has he done there? Who owns him? Weirdo billionaires that go in back rooms who help him win campaigns with shady donations and that kind of thing. Billionaire, genocidal leaders like Vladimir Putin, and you can bring Qatar's plane into that. Right. If you build like a way for a narrative structure, because that's how we tell stories, for people to understand how it fits into the whole, it can be devastating. If it just is like one of these messages we say one day and then say something else the next day, and never give people the proper context and the proper messaging, and don't reinforce it on every single level, then it won't do as much damage. It's there to destroy him, is all I'm trying to say.
And Qatar, just have to do it. For people who don't know much about the Middle East, Qatar, it's an oil-rich country, but they have housed terror leaders of Hamas and other terror organizations. They've given them a home. They funneled a lot of money to terrorist organizations throughout the Middle East. So there's that aspect of it. And the other part about it is, I mean, Donald Trump, just the way he spoke about it today, also it gets to the total lack of credibility Donald Trump has on everything. Trump, in justifying this, is, oh, well, this is a country that gave us today, it was 5.1, I think he said $5.1 trillion in economic investment in the United States. Now, before, when they were over there, it was $1.2 trillion in economic activity.
Whoa, it grows so quickly.
Bizarre, because Qatar's annual gross domestic product, its entire GDP, is only $200 billion a year. So a week ago, it was, oh, they're committing 6 years worth of GDP entirely to the United States. I can't even do the math. Now, is it what, 50 times that? I mean, it is so stupid. It is so ridiculous and so easily disproven. And so when there's Donald Trump then saying about anything, oh, we're only cutting waste, fraud, and abuse of Medicare, this is the same guy who said he would end the war in Russia and Ukraine on day one. He would lower prices and inflation on day one. He would give us the biggest economic recovery we've ever had. I mean, he can't be believed on anything. And I feel like that sort of piece of it. So now when he says, oh, this isn't corruption and I'm not doing anything for Qatar because they gave me a plane, how can anybody believe that?
Yep. I mean, and I think that can fit under, corruption, the lying, as I mean, maybe it doesn't as easily fit moral corruption, whatever, but like when you create sort of a narrative there. But again, you can play around with what I said. Like that doesn't have to be the exact narrative. But the incompetence and the criminality / corruption have to be two key parts of it. And I do think the cruelty with some of the things they do, because, I've seen some Americans who I didn't expect recoil at some of the stuff that they've done. And I think it's important to point that out anyhow. But again, all of that lying and whatever is, again, it's part of the corruption. I mean, it's part of how he's corrupted the process. It's part of how he corrupts everything he touches, he looks at, he's anything to do with, and I don't see how. Again, there's even with their advantages, they're so beatable. If we would just, at some point, I think we'll do that in the Substack, David, is like, here's your messaging. We'll even give some options, but it's not hard if you just stick to it. And every member and every pundit and every, commercial, every TikTok, every whatever reinforces in various ways these messages. It's not like you have to say the same exact words. You shouldn't. You should creatively play into the same narrative, Here, let me.
I gotta believe that even Republicans are sort of nervous about the jet. I mean, that's why so many Senate Republicans have come out and said this is nice gesture, bad idea. I mean, Josh Hawley of all people said, okay, nice gesture, but maybe the Qataris can spend $400 million and gift us something else that we need, build school, whatever it is. I mean, but so I think you're spot on in terms of that. This is a potent political issue for Democrats to carry forward, and I think even with Republicans, sort of, I think, are fearful about it as well.
Oh, I mean, my God, like the show images of some of the gloss and the insanity, the insanely rich, aspects of the kingdom of Qatar, and show, what they gave Donald Trump, and just maybe show some things about their human rights record and some other things going on there. I mean, it's not difficult if you put it in a structure, a simple, straightforward structure, people can understand and just hammer it home constantly. I did want to say quickly, I like to give priority to the folks who are kind enough to give us super chats. We have a $5 one from ET here. So we got with a question: did someone in the Noem hearing actually read her the origins and actual meaning of habeas corpus, that it has been around before Columbus's voyages? I don't know that. I know that she was that Senator Maggie Hassan read to her exactly what it meant. I don't know if she read to her exactly when it had sort of originated and been around since. But I think they should have just been like messing with her, and sort of put asked her if she believed in the code of Hammurabi, or I would have pulled out others from the past, other past rules of law from other civilizations. You know what I mean? Like just to see if she.
I was trying to figure out why. I mean, to me, the question I wish a senator had asked her is, she doesn't know. The question, instead of educating her, or do you believe, do you support it? It's, why don't you know? How come you don't know this? Now, the answer might be, okay, she apparently never graduated undergraduate. She left to go back to the family farm. She never went to law school, so this isn't something she would have studied. But you would think that as a cabinet secretary with general counsels in your department, that and before you go testify, when you know you're going to be asked about legal rights, you would think that somebody in her department would say, okay, let's go through Constitution 101. And here's what Democrats mean when they talk about due process, and here's what the Constitution says, just so that she can understand where the Democratic argument may be coming from, because then you're in a better position to respond if you disagree on policy matters or whatever it is. And to me, that maybe gets to your point that maybe the Trump White House sees that she's not capable of that. That she's not capable of arguing and understanding, and as a result, she gets owned very easily at these hearings.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not do that, right? Like, I don't have a legal degree, but I'm undergrad. I went to grad school and something different and whatever. And obviously, I know what habeas corpus is. But could I have read it from the Constitution word for word? No, I could have told you the basic meaning, but I'd tell you this: if I were going into a damn hearing that was televised and to do with my job, I'd memorize every freaking word in there. So I mean, like, it's the lack of caring, preparation. Like, she doesn't think that's her job. She thinks her job is to commit actual war crimes, which this is considered a war crime, to go pose in front of mostly naked prisoners in a concentration camp prison in El Salvador. That's what she thinks her job is playing. Both Swalwell and Goldman got to, if you're not too busy dressing up in your costumes, during their things. I mean, and that's a dress up, Homeland Security chief for a dress up party, because that's all they are. They just put on costumes.
Ice Barbie. And I think she's a nitwit, and it just goes in keeping with some of the other people who were part of the cabinet, whether it's Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, the attorney general, and even like Donald Trump sets the tone when he's asked, as he was on Meet the Press, don't you believe you have to support the Constitution? And he says, I don't know. Well, right. You swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. What do you mean you don't know? And so to me, this is an administration that is filled with imbeciles, people who are sort of low information, ignorant, not very well educated. And to a point, I think you maybe on one of our shows last week, thank God that there is this sort of level of ignorance and incompetence, because if Donald Trump's evil was matched with an actual smart, sophisticated approach, then we'd really be in some trouble.
No, I know. And it's why we really need that kind of a enormous win. First, with a bunch of the Senate elections, because of the open seats at the end of this year, and the governor's races in the next year. I mean, we need to destroy them and have the kinds of majorities that FDR and LBJ at one point and others did have, because there's so much governmental reform that has to happen. Because the next time the fascist that gets in office may be smart. Yeah. And may be able to control their behavior, and may be able to control not sending out unhinged tweets at like 2 a.m. And then we'd be in even that much more danger than we're in right now. And we're in enough danger as it is. But I'll say quickly, to me, she fits the part. I mean, all these people have been par for the course, because one, in a way, they don't make Trump feel bad about himself, which he always does, which is why he hates, whenever someone like Bruce Springsteen criticizes him, he freaks out, because he always wanted people like that to accept him, and they never would in the past, and they never will, because he's a talentless hack who just got some money from daddy. I mean, he doesn't have any actual discernible talent at anything besides putting aside what an evil, son of a bitch he is. But he looks to surround himself with people for various reasons. I'm sure maybe it's because there's compromise on them and he can make them do what he wants. Maybe it's just because, again, he's not threatened because they're so stupid. Maybe it's because he's comfortable around criminals. He is one after all. So you can understand why someone like Pete Hegseth, who had to pay a woman off who accused him of sexual assault, would be somebody, allegedly, I guess we have to say, because he paid her off and she went away. Well, why would he be comfortable around somebody like that? And Kristi Noem, somebody who was basically at the Sturgis rally, opened up South Dakota's and said no masks and everything during COVID. So that became one of the biggest super spreader events. She also, I have to look at it and see what she did specifically, but her daughter was not qualified to get a real estate license. And magically, mommy made a call, who's the governor, and her daughter, got the real estate license. Like, she's of their ilk. right? She thinks she can do whatever she wants. The rules don't apply to her. And there've been those rumors out there forever about her, having an affair with Corey Lewandowski, which makes my skin crawl, just the two of them. The two of them, honestly, if we want to suspend habeas corpus, we should suspend it to make sure to say those two can't reproduce. That would be one justification I could accept.
Then there's also the total lack of self-awareness or self-judgment, as evidenced by her putting that horrific story in her book about shooting her puppy in the face because she didn't like the way the dog was behaving. And somehow she thought that would show that she was tough in the way that Donald Trump would want, that she was a tough farmer, when in fact it just showed that she was sadistic. She's crazy.
She is. I have a cute little puppy named Cricket. I took a shotgun and took it to the gravel pit, which has now become almost a phrase for this kind of thing, and shot it in the face. Like, I mean, again, the cruelty, the evil, the all of the stuff, of course, is in the Substack piece that will come out with this. We'll put this video in there and it will come out. I wrote it. David has a video in there. New York Times pitch bot. Come on, guys. We're approaching 1,000 paid subscribers. We still have a little bit of a way to go. But we've decided that when we get to that point, one of the things we are going to start doing is raising money for other independent creators. Is going to be one of our raison d'etres. So the bigger we get, the more we can do, because I'm tired of hearing people that tell you to subscribe to independent media, and then what they really just mean is subscribe to me. And they don't do they only will talk to other biggest creators and whatever. We're going to start making a priority at our place, highlighting smaller creators in our newsletters, highlighting them on the Substack show. Make sure that we have somebody who has a bigger following come on first, and then somebody who is a smaller creator come on after, so they get the benefit of the first person's big following there. Because nobody's doing it. We don't have billionaires doing it, as you know, and there are a whole bunch of people on our side who talk a big game about it, but don't do anything. Only look for other people with big names and big followings. And so I feel like we got lucky enough that we've got this really large Substack following, and we're going to put it to use. So
it's going to be like, I think the analogy that I was using for everybody out there with Cliff was, we're sort of going to be like, I don't remember how many people sort of watched Oprah Winfrey in her day when she had Oprah's favorite things, and she would identify, I just knocked my microphone. She would identify whether it's her favorite ice cream flavor that came out, some strange sorbet that nobody had ever heard of, or her favorite device, or whatever it was. And it was interesting stuff that then the sales multiplied of these things, and they were great products to begin with, and Oprah bringing attention to it helped them. I sort of feel like that's where we're going to be in terms of other Substack writers and progressive journalists and media, that people who may not have such a large following, but who Cliff and I love and feel like all of you should hear about. We're going to do everything we can to use our platforms to amplify them. And also so that viewers who are out there, you don't have to go around searching for all this stuff and listening to all kinds of different stuff. You go to say, oh, David Schuster and Cliff Schechter recommended that I follow Jonathan Larson's The Effing News, for an example.
Right.
Okay. And that's part of the role that we see that we can play.
Yep. And look, I've seen some of you folks put some in here, and this is some names in there. It's not to say anything negative. Like, for example, Hal Sparks raid. All right. We got the Hal Sparks folks here. Thank you, Hal and gang. But even when I'm talking about, so some of you guys put some names in here, like one had Fred Wellman in here. Well, we've had Fred on our show before, and he's not, I love Fred and I'll always promote Fred. I recommend his Substack. He's been on here, but he's not small. He's not a small creator. I saw Luke Beasley, somebody put on there. I'm a big fan of Luke's, and hope to do some collaboration with him on various things. He has over 1 million, I believe, subscribers on YouTube. He is not small. I'm talking about people that you may not even be able to tell me about because you don't know they exist. I'm talking about people that have 500 Substack, followers or subscribers, and have small couple thousand at YouTube or whatever it might be. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about helping folks that who are brilliant, but they're just, they're brilliant at what they do, which is disseminating information, writing smart things, creating smart videos or art or whatever it is. But you know what? They're not great at marketing themselves, or they don't want to because they're busy doing the work and it's difficult and all that. And so there's like a few right now I can think of offhand that should just have gotten everything right over the last 20 years. Well, so many people have gotten them wrong, and most people do not know who they are. Yeah. And, if I got into this and I love what we do. And, I ask you guys always so we can keep doing it, to contribute to, for, I'll often say like 99-cent super sticker, or any small amount matters. Well, that's the way I view this with, and we even have a decent sized platform, but we're not in the crazy territory of where like money just rolls in. We have to make a living. But there are people out there that have to either do this stuff on the side with hours they could be taking to just do whatever the hell they want, or they do it as a living and they barely get by. And like, they're doing this for our democracy. They're doing this for your rights, for my rights, for David's rights, for our families. And they don't get support. They don't get big money. They don't get, big creators for the most part. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and I'm not going to cast aspersions, at least not to begin with. We'll see where I get eventually on some of the big creators who are only out for themselves. But I certainly am going to make a point of pointing out some of the ones who are bigger creators who do actually, like when somebody said Fred Wellman in there. Well, that's a great example. Fred, actually, I've seen him plenty of times as somebody who I think has 50,000. I don't know how many he's got on his Substack at this point. Whatever, Fred's gone out of his way to have people on there, especially veterans, one of his big issues, that don't have big platforms, I mean, that is what we are going to do constantly. And I'm proud of it. And that's why, I'm going to feel very good about sort of asking you guys to contribute and support it and all of that, because you'll see the results. Anyone see Jody Hamilton's new show? Cynthia Jody's a good friend of mine, and she was, she for a while was booking for Stephanie Miller, but I've known Jody forever. And yes, like I reached out to her when I saw she sent it out, and she invited me on right away, which is very kind of her. I mean, as you may know, I've had Jody on here before. And I intend to go on. It's just a matter of finding a moment, because these days, even going on Bob Seska's today, which was a blast, meant that I had a newsletter, a column to write this morning, which is basically done. I had 45 minutes, or actually we called it 45 minutes. It was an hour and a quarter on Bob's show. And then I had to get this thing ready, and I'm doing this, so I try to tell people, I'm not complaining. I'm not a roofer. I'm not a construction worker. I'm not picking grapes in a field. Like, there are people that work, that do the kind of back-breaking work I can't have anything but respect for. But, we work hard. This isn't easy. You see the good product, hopefully, because of what we do behind the scenes. And so, that's why we'll keep, I don't like asking ever, if it were up to me, some fairy tale lefty billionaire would just come down with their angel wings, land in the room here, and put a nice Nixonian brown bag on the table, with some fat bills in it. But it doesn't work that way.
There are some angel investors out there in the business world and tech world and whatnot. I have not seen any angel investors per se in our world, but if somebody wants to be the first and wants to invest in a show or invest in a platform, we're open to that.
That is true. When I used to have a 501c3 because of the tax status, I had a couple of folks that, not huge amounts like what people are thinking, not six-figure or even mid five-figure, or, whatever, but gave some money to contribute to some things because we were trying to stop this. Back in the days when abortion was legal, we were trying to stop this. I mean, it still is here because we passed an amendment, thankfully, to our Constitution. The people did, but our state legislature was attacking and trying to find a way to do an end run around abortion rights and ban it. And I had a few folks here, who maybe gave me, 2,000 here, 5,000 there, whatever it was, to try to a C3, because it's a, tax write-off to do it. But again, we're not talking about the kind of money, like, I mean, some of these right-wing figures, if you guys all think they just are, I mean, if you think Ben Shapiro is there because he's talented, I have a whole other story to tell you about the magical millions of dollars of Facebook ads that were going up when he first started. I wonder who was paying for those. I don't know. So we do what we do, and I like that you guys are throwing out names, though, because there will be some people who we won't have heard of, and maybe we'll get a list going, and we'll kind of try to look up some of these folks. I already have a couple people who right away are on my mind, but we want to do what we can to kind of give some grants and some support, some other stuff to some other folks. So
And
There
by the
you
way, can
go.
I give a shout out to perhaps one of the most famous people on YouTube of a certain generation who's actually, I think, in sort
Ooh,
of the progressive world and doing good things? His name is Mr. Beast. Have you heard of Mr. Beast? Mr.
Mr.
Beast is
Beast,
the
he's got
guy who
like
will spend
50
like tens
million.
of millions of dollars putting these elaborate videos together, challenges on his YouTube channel. He's got something like 50 million followers. He's making a boatload of money off of his YouTube videos. He's like one of the most popular things around for people who are 15 years and younger. And what I love about him is that he's actually using a lot of his profits to build water wells in Africa and to help with vaccinations and help with set up medical clinics. He's a good guy who happens to be making a fortune off of his YouTube creation. So for everybody who's out there who has kids, when your kid starts talking about Mr. Beast and how much they love the Mr. Beast videos, amen to Mr. Beast. He's a good guy and he's
Yep.
helping our world.
Now I know there's some people in there that are disagreeing with you, David. Just so you know,
Really?
I don't know. I know he is because I have kids. I don't follow, and again, I don't know enough. I don't follow all the stories. I've seen some of the stuff David's talking about, but you guys will have to make it clear whether are we being purists here and expecting everyone to be perfect, or is the dude actually done some bad things? Because there are some people that would call out anybody for anything, and then you find out that people are very quick to call others out and not look in their own lives sometimes and say none of us are perfect. And if any of our lives are exposed to the spotlight, we've made mistakes. I've done dumb things. I've hurt people's feelings. I feel bad about it. I tried to do my best to make up for it. But I don't know in his case. Like I remember there are people that used to, rip on the only other I can think of because of what David was just talking about was Bill Gates. Yes, far from perfect, obviously. And I don't know the Epstein story, all of it, but even if any of that stuff ends up being real, well, that outweighs everything. Okay. I just don't, there's never been to me the definitive, he did this at the, whatever. He also pretty much almost got rid of malaria. So I think we have to take all these things into account. I mean, it's like when we look at historical figures, most of them weren't perfect, far from it. But all right. So we've got from Amethyst Pony, lawsuit filed in 2023 alleged that contestants experienced widespread mistreatment, sexual harassment, unpaid wages and expenses, and failure to be paid for overtime.
You know what? I've actually heard that there have been lawsuits filed for how he did some of his productions, and I'm not sure if the lawsuits were, I guess they were filed against him or also filed against his production company. I'm not sure the allegation was that he necessarily engaged in any of this, but look, I mean, fair enough. I mean, and these things get settled in the courts and the evidence comes out. I think my point is that I would rather have a guy who's making a fortune off of YouTube or anything else who's actually taking his profits. Forget about for a second how he's met with treating his people well or not treating well, and that is important. But if the billionaires who are out there who are actually taking a big chunk of their profits, their wealth, and spending it to help people that they don't even know who are among the most impoverished in our world, to me that is something positive. And you mentioned Bill Gates. Bill Gates called out Elon Musk. Elon Musk has not done some of the stuff that the Bill Gates Foundation has done.
Right.
So
I know. And that's why I think, again, there are things, and there were things if they were to come out about Gates with Epstein, there are sort of deal breakers where you don't get to come back from that. But all none of that has ever been shared. And that doesn't mean whether it's real or not. What I do know is some of the other stuff that he's done. I mean, if you're a kid in Africa and you're not getting malaria, that's kind of nice if Bill Gates helped make that happen. If it's my kids, I'm thanking him if they're not getting it because of him. So again, we have to kind of know the deal. And I don't know that we always do with Mr. Beast, but here's what I'll promise you. I will look up and read some more about him and try to find out who is texting me right now. Is David texting me to say hello?
Not me.
Oh, no. Okay. No, it's actually my editor who edits some of the YouTube videos. I'll have to remind him when I'm on air. And look, Gates had, was he one of the original kind of ones of that proposal that half of their money go to charity and, Bloomberg signed on and, a bunch of other folks signed on. And look, there was another one. I used to take a lot of crap for the fact that I did stuff for Michael Bloomberg on economics, although he moved to the left even on some of those things, but on a bunch of things, I didn't agree with Michael Bloomberg. But my God, like when no Democrat would even come out and mention the word guns, I can't tell you if you think it's bad now where we are compared to where we were. There's at least like what 8, 10 more states that have universal background checks. We've actually passed national legislation, numerous executive orders. We've done all sorts of things. These things save lives. We're still terrible and have a long way to go. But like what we've done has saved lives. And if Bloomberg hadn't put his fortune behind that, that never happens.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we have to, again, this is an issue, and when it's real, I don't want to dismiss real concerns too. When people have done really, really ugly stuff, yeah, they're off the island, so to speak. I don't care what they've done with their money, but I just want to make sure that we all put everything in its context, because there is this thing, there is a kind of thing we do on the left where we don't always do that, and somebody does one thing that we think is bad, and like that's it, we're done, and we can't do that if we want to build a big tent. We just can't. Because I bet you and I, anybody here listening right now, I bet there's issues that we disagree on. My guess is most of the core ones we would agree, but that's the deal. So, back to Kristi Noem sucks. You guys can tell me this, because again, I try, here's one where you can tell me if I'm being a bad person. I try not to I try to do everything I can to make fun of how fake the Trump people are, what frauds they are, how terrible they are. And I also try to avoid falling into traps that can happen, like sexism. But, to me, Kristi Noem, part of what is fake about her, it's one of many, many things. Have you seen a picture of what she looked like when she was in Congress? Plastic surgery is one thing. Botox is one thing. I don't judge on most of that. Like, she has a different face than she had back then. And like, why? Like, she was in her 30s when she got elected to Congress, and just had all the. It's like considered like it's like Mar-a-Lago chic to like have your face completely rearranged. The men do it too, by the way. They get the pec implants, and it isn't just the women. Here, I just happen to be talking about a woman, but I've ripped into the guys too who go there and just look, and like, yeah, I did put pictures side by side in this Substack, so you can tell me if you think I'm being sexist. I could always take them out. I don't know. What do you think, David?
I think it gets to, there's an expectation that unfortunately when Kristi Noem and people like her buy into this and get the Botox and the plastic surgery, they set back women, I think, by decades, and they allow and they enable the sexism that exists in the Republican Party. And the reason Kristi Noem has done this is because she knows Donald Trump likes a certain look and wants a certain aesthetic, and as a result, she's gonna play that game because that's going to be her road to power. Whereas you'd like to think that women and men achieve power and success through merit and through their strength of their skills and expertise, not because they look a certain way. And when Kristi Noem decides, oh, I'll play that game too, it sets everybody back.
That's great. You know what? That's maybe what I will do. Jim Williams, one of our great moderators here. Matt Gaetz' face, because I remember when he did that thing and he showed up was at like the State of the Union or whatever, and you were just like, oh my God.
Yeah, he had the eyebrows that went like,
he had like he had like, what was it? What was that show? Oh my God, with the Frankenstein like characters and
he was like Eddie Munster.
Yes. I put that I put that up. So again, I don't think I'm doing it in a sexist way, because I just don't want anybody to think that I'm being that way, because trust me, I did it with Matt Gaetz too. I'm an equal opportunity. So you know what? We'll include Matt Gaetz in there, and then people will understand that this isn't about gender. This is about the fact that, like Matt Gaetz, who inherited daddy's money and who is still being, if I'm correct, investigated for sex trafficking, and who lied and cheated and stole and broke into the skiff, and maybe, with their cell phones, and maybe exposed our secrets and all the other things that Matt Gaetz did that were awful. To me, what he did with his face was a metaphor. He was a fake, a fraud, and I pointed that out. So, and I'm doing this.
I think it's the same with Donald Trump and his orange makeup, and the orange that he's
and his piss cotton candy hair, as Penn Jillette called it.
Yeah, Donald Trump puts on this heavy orange makeup for a reason, because there's something he feels like he needs to have some sort of covering, some sort of tan in order to be powerful. And so there's the president of the United States playing into this whole game as well. And the message that sends everybody, never mind that it just looks stupid and silly on Donald Trump and he doesn't always get it right and it's gross.
Especially when the wind blows and you can see like the white up here is hilarious.
The message that this sends to people that, you have to have a certain sort of covering, a certain sort of artificial look in order to be successful is absurd.
Right. And it just, right. And as, Diana Monterez, hopefully I pronounced your name right, said, they are insecure people. Yeah. I mean, to me, at the root of everything on the right is a lack of being comfortable in their own skin, literally. Is a lack of knowing who they are, what they stand for, is feeling like they've been rejected by elite segments of society, feeling disempowered. That's where you get a lot of these angry white guys who feel like they've been looked at, and the elite MAGAs are pretty much the same. MAGA, it's not the Republican Party per se, right? I mean, I think Mitt Romney's policies suck, but for whatever I think about Mitt Romney, I think he's a pretty confident guy in who he is and what he's done. I don't think it's a Republican thing. I think it's existed before MAGA. Newt Gingrich certainly is of that ilk, but MAGA has sort of condensed it and brought them all together. I mean, honestly, it's the island of misfit toys. I mean, they have no inner compass that makes them feel good about themselves. So they have to change the way they look. They have to change, they have to become new money and make as much money as possible, be on TV as much as possible. They have to be cruel to other people to feel better about who they are. I think a lot of this is psychology and how empty they are inside. And they've shown it in numerous ways. I mean, I always have felt like, I studied history as an undergrad. It was political history, and that I'm glad I did. I found it fascinating, but maybe that should have been my minor, and I should have studied psychology as a major, because I really do think that understanding them, you have to understand the psychology behind what creates, because they're no different than you see it in entertainment too. You see it in other places, the ones that just kind of have no sense of who they are. So they're always trying to get attention. They're always but they all in themselves, they saw Donald Trump and he was a kindred spirit. Let's just say it, culture comes from the top, as you were saying earlier, David, whether it's corruption or it's that look. And the fact that you have to get that look to like appeal to him and to fit in Mar-a-Lago and all that. I mean, it also makes me feel like sort of, again, this is sort of example number 2,138 or something of, hey, aren't you the ones that claim to be Christians and say we were created in God's image? Apparently that's not an image you're happy with.
And Kristi Noem sucks. That's just how it is.
I think that's going to be the name of this when we're done this episode. It's to be like, and Kristi Noem sucks. Because I think that's really, of all the time that we've spent on analyzing these issues, Kristi Noem, and of course Jake Tapper sucks too. So yes, maybe they should spend time together. If Corey Lewandowski's okay, I'll stop. I mean, hey, he dated Monica Lewinsky. I mean, he could probably find out a lot more about Trump if he'd go and date Kristi Noem. So, I mean, apparently Jake's willing to call all sorts of phone numbers that are unlisted and do whatever it takes. So, if whatever it takes is whatever it takes.
I mean, I hope, regardless of whether what people, I hope people sort of see the sort of the fraud that Jake Tapper's journalism is. But putting that aside, just the fact that, Joe he's dealing with cancer. It's cancer that has spread to his bones. Just for that alone, I hope the book, people just put the book aside. Don't buy the book. Don't purchase it. Don't elevate it. Give the guy some peace. He's facing, horrible disease. And this is, maybe there's, I suppose I can see a place where, yes, the story about a White House covering up a president's frailty needs to be told, but it doesn't need to be told now. And it certainly should not be told by Jake Tapper.
That is a great way of putting it. There's no story of any import that Jake Tapper should tell. So let's start with that. Let him stick to, why doesn't he write a book on the Kardashians? Okay. He's perfect for it. Can do all the garbage, that he wants to do. But second of all, as you said, we're in a period of time, and this is why we're talking about Kristi Noem and not knowing what habeas corpus is, and them saying, yeah, maybe we could suspend that. And Donald Trump saying, maybe I don't have to follow the Constitution. That shit's a little more important. When your democracy is under the kind of threat it's under right now, when a guy is still ignoring a 9-0 court decision and will not facilitate bringing back Kilmar Barrio Garcia, it is not a time for this stupid book. It's not a time to take people's attention with this garbage, sensationalistic bullshit. That's the second. And the third part, again, with Biden. And I've always said this to people, don't deify anybody.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, this is what leads people to say, I'm voting for nobody. Well, then you're not mature enough to live in a democracy. Because unless the two people you're choosing between are like Idi Amin and Jeffrey Dahmer, in which case I'd have a pretty hard time making a choice and making an argument that there was a lesser of two evils. There were two random ones, right, huh, David? If the democracy is about, it's about, like, we're supposed to be advanced citizens in a democracy. We're supposed to be at a point where we understand that there will always be a better option. And you're not looking for a spouse or a best friend. You're looking for the person who best represents your values. And that may be somebody who doesn't represent 50% of your values, but they're better than the horrific thing on the other side. And we only have two parties. Wish we had 3 or 4, a little bit more like the UK, and so that there could be another option here and there. But we have two, and you need to make that choice. And like, I never, deified Biden. I never, when I worked for him, I did my thing. Since then, I've been critical at times. I can say two things in the same breath. One of the 3 or 4 most consequential domestic policy presidents in the last 125 years, literally since 1900, in what he was able to pass and create against a hostile group of mouth breathers who wanted to destroy him in small majorities. He was incredible. All right. He should absolutely be in the top 15 presidents, good chance in the top 10. At the same time, due to simple science and due to simple things I know from actuarial charts, I did not think he should run for re-election when he did. I can say both of those things. And again, I respect him and I respect what he accomplished. I think he was a great president. I think he'll be remembered as one of the greats. I think he made a big mistake there. Do I think that is the thing that cost us? No, I think much more it's the Jake Tappers of the world that cost us. But again, we need to be able to have those nuanced conversations, because there are people who are like, well, you'd be like, you don't think Biden should run? You hate Biden. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I wrote ads for the guy in 2020. I don't hate him.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. And so I actually have to go pick up the kid from the bus. So I'm going to leave everybody with Cliff's words, what Cliff just said the last 2 minutes.
No, you have to leave everybody with, and Kristi Noem sucks.
And Kristi Noem sucks. Cliff, thanks as always. Great show, buddy.
Thanks for being here, man.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Yep. All right, guys. So we have a little more time here. What else do we have? I want to acknowledge a few folks. I acknowledged ET before. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Petrazi 20, member for 4 months. Absolutely outstanding. Mr. Android, member for 7 months. Wow. You like me. You really like me, or you don't hate me, which is good. I'm trying to see any other topics. Like, I have to go pick up a kid relatively soon, but not right away. So I want to see where we are, and if there's something else important that's worth are taking a gander at, if you will. Let's see. Don't forget also to listen to Bob Seska's podcast. I did go on there, as I told you. We will have the show tomorrow, Amped Up with Cliff Schecter, 2 p.m. Eastern. It'll be fun. We had an amazing guest cancel last minute. She'll be on in a couple weeks. So we will be doing our best, me and David, to get somebody worthy of your patronage there. This is fun. Well, we got Jasmine Crockett accusing Republicans of the weaponization of government. Of course, yes, they're always doing exactly what they say we're doing. Let's see if there's anything else that Trump having a conspiracy fest in the Oval Office. I'm not sure that's news anymore. Well, I will give my condolences to the late Jerry Connolly, congressman who died, I believe today, in a very different world. Life's a strange place. When I lived in Washington, D.C., I interviewed to be campaign manager for 2 people running for Congress. One of them was Chris Van Hollen, who's now a U.S. Senator, and the other one was Jerry Connolly. Didn't get either gig, folks, but it's been that long, MJ. Thank you for being here for that long. You have done it. So there you go, guys. I think that's most of what we have out there. I'm going to implore you again and say we need to. Oh, somebody sent me something. Maybe that's worth a friend. Is that worth checking out and seeing if that's worthy of our show? Where are we? Oh, this bill being written behind closed doors. Go for the Senate as soon as today. I'll have to look at the whole way it was written. God, these people are awful. I saw somebody there asked about what about firing Noem? We had that conversation earlier. Were you not here for that? Maybe you weren't, which is I've spoken to someone in DC who is in the know. And again, I hope you know that I'm not that type of person who just makes these things up, because then I'd probably do this every week or every other week. I think I've done this once before in the history of doing these things, but I have a few people left there. When somebody tells me something that seems reliable, I share it. And the thing that I was told by this insider is that there have been discussions, including Trump being pissed off about Kristi Noem making a fool of herself on habeas corpus and being kind of owned by Dan Goldman and Eric Swalwell. Those are the two that I saw. I'm not saying those are the two that bothered him, but that she really did a bad job in Congress in general in front of Democrats. And now this leak about her wanting to do a reality show. Remember, nobody gets to do a reality show over the Donald. And she would like, of course, to be the star of a reality show of which immigrant can gain legal status and stay in the United States. A sick concept, a Running Man meets Hunger Games idiocy, but it leaked out and they were none too pleased with that. And so much like there was deliberation about Pete Hegseth, and somehow after, again, we had Signalgate 2, he did not get fired. He ended up being able to stay on. I don't know who fought for him because it looked like he was gone. There are now those kinds of conversations happening where there is a good chance that Kristi Noem could be kicked out because she is embarrassing people. But again, she also could not, the way Hegseth, somebody somehow found a savior. They're just not happy. So we'll have to see. I'd love it on one level if she get fired because I hate her and whatever. But on another level, would anybody be any better that would come along? I mean, I guess, you can't do worse. So maybe that would be a good thing. Please, guys, go and subscribe. You got some good stuff here. Please subscribe to Twitch, YouTube. I was going to have David say something. We are 100 away from 120,000 subscribers on YouTube. So you got it right there, youtube.com /Cliffs_Edge. If you're not a subscriber at YouTube, please go do that right now. You can even keep this window open, but we need to get to 120,000. That's like a big number. It'd be really nice to get there too. As I told you, and this is going to become more evident because we have events planned in the coming weeks. So, within the next month, next 4 or 5 weeks, various things we're going to do via our newsletters, columns, videos, live streams, and everything else. But also we have funds that we're going to set aside for grants to smaller creators, and we're going to highlight them on our shows. And we're going to walk the walk, as I said to all of you. We're not just going to talk the talk. There are some big creators that say the great game about independent media, and in the end, what that means is come work at my channel for slave wages, or don't, or give me money or whatever. They don't help anybody else out there. I felt like I've always tried to help others out there, and I've had people on my shows with much smaller followings because I don't care, not that I've got the hugest in the world, but smaller than mine, because I didn't care. If they're good, they're good. I want to have some people on with big followings. I want to grow, but I'm always looking for others. But now we're going to make this one of our sort of raison d'etres. It's going to be a key thing that we're going to do to make sure that every week we're highlighting people that are small creators that do amazing work and should be out there further. And so I think that for me, and Lefty Gramps, who's been a member for 6 months, nice, will make it much easier for me to say, please go buy the Substack and consider being a paid subscriber. We break 1,000 paid subscribers there. It means two things. One, we move up in their estimation of Substack because they make their money by taking a little fee from that. So they like us more and they promote our stuff more. And B, we have more money to give to other creators and can create more stuff for them. Tina Bradford says Sherry Jacobus. Sherry's one that I would consider, but Sherry, I mean, literally between Tony and I helped her put together the YouTube channel. I've had her on here. I had her on my 12-hour live stream. Sherry, I often am involved with in terms of helping. So, you know, I'll consider it a success if one of the folks out there, one folk can go and become a paid subscriber there. We're $1.14 a week. You know, what else are you doing with $1.14 a week? That's what it costs you, $59 for the year. Sheldon Hughes, member for 6 months here. Wow, we're getting a lot of that. I'm going to put this up and I'm going to say thank you, Chipmunk Milk, because I feel great about this. And it makes me feel even better, like, you know, when I ask folks for money, that I'm asking them for funds to not just support what we do, but what others do too. And you'll see the proof in the pudding. Speaking of that, let me just look through here quickly. I read out the members for months, but Jimmy Jens gave a $1.99 super sticker. I'm not sure I got to that. And I think that is about it. So all I will say is Jimmy Jens with a little salty language there. I see your point. I think I could figure out your code. So who's coming with me on the way out? This is it. I'm going to head out. You know, I like to leave with 1 or 2, or how about we're at 7 folks who either memberships or have given super chats. So do I have 3 more among the lovely crowd? Lefty Gramps comes in. Thanks, Cliff and the mods. Thank you, my friend. That is really kind. And the mods should always all be thanked. That is hugely helpful. All right. Do we have 2 more folks? Come on, 2 more. 99-cent super sticker. Anything. All helps. It all helps. Going once, going twice, going, I don't know how many times. Ooh, Diana Monner has a new member. We have a new member. That counts too. Thank you, Diana. I really appreciate that. Huge. So that's it. We're down to 1. Just 1 more act of kindness to extend to the lefty media sphere. Is that a term? Anyone? You know, I can leave with 9 if I have to. These are good feelings at the end, and I appreciate it. And MJ joins the party. MJ, you're fantastic, with a $5 super chat. And so we've done it. You guys have been great as always. Thank you for being here. Remember, 2 p.m. tomorrow Eastern. I will round it up. An excellent guest by then. This was a very last minute thing. And so we lost this one, which I don't know. I don't need to babble anymore. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, Substack. That's where the show will be, amped up with Cliff Schechter. David Schuster will be there, as will somebody else very cool. As always, it's been awesome being here with you guys this week. I love you guys. I love your support. And let's go support some progressive, independent media out there and kick some butt and get rid of fascists. Does that sound like a deal? Sounds like a deal to me. So, as I often say, as the sun sets slowly in the west, I bid you all a fond farewell. Take it easy.